Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Real Texas Team Podcast number 22 here on That Real Texas Team Podcast, the channel, an associate channel of the Curtis Podcast Network. I'm the host of both. My name is Curtis Brown. With me, as always, here on TRTTP, Rondog. Ronnie, how you doing, brother?
Doing awesome. Babysitting for at least until Mama gets home. But always find time to talk Texans.
Yep. So we're going to be talking all sorts of Pittsburgh Steelers, Texans preseason. We're going to be talking injuries. We're going to be talking, who we want to see the most of. What do we want? Risers and Fallers. It's going to be a good time. So go ahead and hit the like, subscribe button so you don't miss any future content, and hit the notification bell.
Ding ding.
And go check out the That Real Texas Team podcast Instagram, run by Ronnie over here.
Yeah.
And then check us out on X. I've yet to make a TRTTP X account, but maybe. Maybe. Soon there might be a website, so check
Ooh,
that out.
that'd be nice. Nice.
We're getting there. We're getting there, folks. We're moving up. So let's get this cranked. Let's talk about some injuries. Injuries.
We got
Bug is
Joe
biting the
Mixon.
South right now.
We
The
got Joe
entire
Mixon
AFC South's
out.
getting bit. We got Joe Mixon out this game. He got hurt in practice. And we got
TQ.
Titus Howard.
It's a big one.
Yeah. It's a big one. TQ got hurt in the game. Strained calf. He's going to be out for a few weeks. And it just kind of, he can't stay healthy. It sucks. But now we only have a smattering of tight ends available to play in the game.
But you know what? Cade Stover will get some reps this week for sure.
Oh, he did last week, and he was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
He'll get a lot more. I think Dalton Schultz is going to have to get a lot more because it's Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, and Cade Stover. Yep. And that's pretty much it right now. Everybody else is hurt.
If I'm not mistaken, Brevin Jordan, just to kind of recap on last year, he broke the tight end speed record, right? Like he was the fastest tight end.
I think so.
Like mile an hour wise.
I think so.
And that one play where he took off like 85 yards or whatever.
Yeah, against the Browns in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It was sick. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know that was a record if that's the case, but that is awesome. Hats off to Jordan for that. Yeah. But let's get into a little bit of how these injuries are going to affect the game, I guess. So with Mixon not being available, we were already going to see some Pierce, but now Pierce is probably going to eat most of Joe Mixon's reps, as well as his scheduled reps, and then the rest of the reps will be divided amongst Akers and company. We're joined tonight by his crazy girl.
I'm trying, guys. I'm trying.
Time at the moment. Those are tears of joy.
You can't have a dirty bathroom.
Let's move to Risers and Fallers. First off, while we give Ronnie a minute here, first, my Risers are pretty simple. They exist in the now vacuum because they exist in the now vacuum of injury. So, oh my God, how am I trying to say this right now? Anyway, my first riser tonight is Blake Fisher. Blake Fisher has played pretty solid throughout the preseason or throughout the Hall of Fame game. And he played pretty well in the practices throughout training camp. They've been glowing reviews about this man. I've been hypothesizing that sooner rather than later, this man will replace Titus Howard. Um, mostly because I think Howard is while healthy, a solid right tackle that anybody would be happy to have as a solid option. Uh, but I think Blake Fisher can almost produce that within the next year or so, depending on, I'm putting a lot of stock in this man. He could go out there and get hurt and never play again. We don't know, but this is my theory here. Titus Howard being my first faller of this evening, because of his injury in practice, he will be giving Blake Fisher more of a look, more of an opportunity to take his spot. Something I've been saying is possible, right? And if this turns out to be something long term, I didn't even get a chance to look it up before we started, but um, if this is an injury that keeps him out a while or puts him on the PUP list like he started last season on and then finished on IR, well, I mean, it's going to be another year of waiting on Titus to play. Um, this offensive line can't revolve around one tackle, one guard, and a center in terms of like who teams are really worried about or like give credit to. So, which brings me to my next riser. Welcome back there, buddy.
Thank you.
Hope everything's smooth over there. We had jinxed it. My next riser is Dameon Pierce. And Dameon Pierce is given an opportunity because of injury yet again to Joe Mixon to get extended reps and extended looks. And this is a guy who needs extended reps and extended looks because Cam Akers played well. He's another riser. If Dameon Pierce takes these extended reps because of Joe Mixon's absence and squanders them horribly, the questions start to get a little loud about whether or not Cam Akers might be the better option as the number 2 than Dameon. And from that point, it's really hard to get back up the depth chart. Then you might see some teams start to call a little bit more often for Dameon Pierce's services. Or maybe not. They might just cut him. He's a 4th-round pick, so I mean the cap hit is not big at all, but that's probably a saving grace as to why he would still probably be on the roster regardless, just because it is cheap. And he's got some special teams versatility. But Cam Akers is a phenomenal opportunity as well to go out there and prove that he's, coming back like 10 months off of an Achilles injury. That's incredible. Like Aaron Rodgers apparently, allegedly, was about to come off of IR before the Jets officially were ruled out of playoff contention. That was like September to late December recovery time. I mean, that's ridiculous. But Cam Akers and the more reasonable recovery time, I suppose, now in that context, is he not supposed to be this healthy. I mean, normally Achilles injuries are something that takes a long time to come back from. Longtime Texans fans will remember Derek Newton tore both of his Achilles and was out for like a year and a half, years. And he ended up resurfacing with the Broncos. But yeah, that's where Derek Newton disappeared to, if you didn't know. Just one day he wasn't there, and that's why. So this also gives an opportunity for really any of these backups to kind of outshine some of these underperforming players. Another riser you could say is Xavier Hutchinson, who is without a doubt making a name for himself in this training camp and early in the preseason throughout the Hall of Fame game. Uh, he's a big target. He knows how to get open, at least lately, and it might earn his way over John Mechie for the roster spot. We're gonna shift gears here. Let's go. So let's what the game's at Pittsburgh, 6 p.m. The starters. Okay, now a lot of the starters are going to get reps. Not all of them. Obviously, we talked about a few that are missing because of injury, but there are some that you really don't need to see that much of out of preseason. But there will be most of them suiting up, including, last year, the first preseason game, CJ Stroud did like 2 drives or something, like a certain number of plays. This year he'll probably be on a pitch count, just the same. I imagine a lot of the starters and ones will be on a similar thing, and there are going to be some. D'Amico has said as much that some, if they're new to the team, will be getting extended looks, extended reps to kind of get more familiarity with the system. It's one thing to do it against air. It's one thing to do it against your own team, but to get some live reps against someone else, and I'll be damned if people say that the preseason is not a competitive game. It is ultra competitive. It just doesn't mean anything anymore. Um, so, rookies, newcomers to play. This is, without a doubt, welcome back.
I'm back finally.
um, we are talking about the Steelers game. We're talking about the starters and everything. How we're going to see of them, rookies and newcomers to play extended. What are you looking forward to in this second preseason outing out of the Texans?
Well, first things first, as is every other Texan on the face of the planet, we're all looking forward to seeing our starters play for the first time.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm looking forward to, seeing, another weekend of practice, with, them being able to, I guess develop more. We'll see how the people that played last week, we'll see how they, like, especially the rookies, we'll see um, how they do being accommodated to the NFL now. Like, they've had their first game, they know the real game speed now. They know how fast the game actually is compared to how it was in college and how it's been throughout practice. So we'll see how all the new guys do with the new offense. I'm looking forward to seeing the team move forward as a unit.
Yeah. I can tell you that I'm excited to see a lot of the players on defense, especially because the Bears were able to just carve up the Texans defense in that Hall of Fame game,
Mm-hmm.
like crazy efficiently. It was ridiculous, like literally death by 1,000 paper cuts, and then a dagger to your ass because the tight end is running a seam.
Yeah.
Um, it was pretty abysmal. So I'm watching all of the safety play. I remember Kalen Bullock making plays and celebrating too early on a fumble that ends up getting recovered by the Bears. Uh,
Yeah.
I remember basically nothing else about the secondary other than the fact that they were always out of position. So I don't know how many reps Stingley's getting. I don't know how many reps Kamari Laster is getting. But on the unofficial depth chart, Kamari Laster is officially corner 2.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been lighting it up and is slated to make himself a pretty solid uh,
I mean,
corner in this league.
he's been in practice. He's been locking down Stefan and Nico and like all of our star receivers. So
Yeah,
I'm excited. I see a Derek Stingley Jr. here.
I mean, I'm hoping that'd be sick.
Yeah.
They're a little bit of a different physicality wise, but I mean they're both if they can both be a solid, like if Derek Stingley can just be him and we can get like B B plus play out of a second corner or something.
Hmm.
I don't
Yep.
need an A. Like we got one. Just B plus.
Hmm.
Um and then like the safeties. Like MJ Stewart and Kalen Bullock looked all right. After those two guys left the game, everybody else looked lost. It was an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also curious to see how the run defense holds up. I want to see the big boys up front. I want to see Lorenzo Fotocasi get his our money worth out of this big
Yeah.
guy. Stop some freaking runs.
Yeah. That'd be
Go
great.
up that line. Let's get something.
Nothing up the middle.
Yeah. I believe Danico Autry is actually going to be eligible to play in this game. If I'm not mistaken, that is a thing that he can do.
Ooh.
Now, I don't know if they would play him because he is 32, 34, something like
Yeah.
that. So they probably will opt not to or just limit reps, but his 6-game suspension starts week 1.
Yeah. Do we know why? I don't remember why.
So essentially, he talked about this on the pod actually. Essentially, he gave doctor a list of all the things that the NFL gave him that he couldn't have any male fertility enhancing drug,
Hmm.
and he gave it to his doctor, and the doctor was like, "All right, I got you," and then gave him stuff with one of the chemicals in it,
Gotcha.
and he tested for that. So
Gotcha.
he said he's not appealing or anything. He gets it, whatever. It's ultimately on him, but
Yeah.
he's going to be suing his doctor essentially.
I would too.
Yeah, for real. Um, but beyond that, I mean, like I'm excited to see the starters as you mentioned, but let's moving on here to topic number 5 that I kind of really forgot to mention early. John Mechie needs this, like, bad.
Yeah.
He needs to come out and explode. Otherwise, we're talking about a second round draft pick that'll probably be just out the league in like a year, 2 years.
Yeah.
He'll probably get somebody to come kick the tires, probably Tennessee, because they're just like that. Um, and and he'll flame out because of injury or just underperformance like he's been doing so far. He looked slow. He looked like he was just kind of going through the
So
motions.
at the same time, so I can see all that. I see all that. He was slow. He wasn't really. It seemed like he wasn't really all there. Um. At the same time, I understand. It's. I can't really use the "it's the first game of the season" excuse. Because I mean he's an NFL receiver. Like they don't real they. There's not a whole lot of I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Um. But I will say it's just the preseason. I mean, yes, the Hall of Fame is a big game, and the preseason is where you're supposed to show what you're about and earn that starting spot or at least a roster spot. Um, but maybe maybe they didn't want him to do all that. You know what I mean? I mean that doesn't make sense in some ways, but like maybe it was just this game doesn't really matter. Let's not go hard. Let's not get injured type of thing.
Yeah. I get that, but this is a guy who's fighting for a job.
Yeah.
Realistically, they're only going to keep 6 or 7 wide receivers, and Ben Skoranek and Xavier Hutchinson have already made a better claim to be on this roster than John Mechie has
Yeah.
this season. Um, Not to say that he hadn't done well in practice or whatever, but like from just the Hall of Fame game, like we still got Bobby Trees on the roster, obviously our top 3, and Noah Brown.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 5. We're talking about 1, maybe 2 spots. And
Yeah.
we have 2 guys who are already playing better than he is.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
He
I
needs it.
could be wrong, but
Look,
you
I
never
get
know.
it. He went through absolute hell and back to get able to be back and
Hmm.
playing in the league. And forever my hat is off to him for that. I mean, that is an incredible feat. But like sometimes like David Quesenberry, when he came back, he was so out of shape. It when he came back from cancer, and then it was like 3 or 4 years later. He was just not in football shape. He'd lost weight.
Hmm.
They needed to put weight back on him, and they just kind of let him go. And he ended up, having a decent, serviceable right tackle career for a couple of different teams. Pretty sure he's probably starting right now for somebody.
Yeah.
Um, last couple of years, he's been in Buffalo and Tennessee. So I mean, maybe not a couple of years, but recently. Um, and then the tight end reps. I mentioned this earlier. The tight end reps with Dalton Schultz and Brevin Jordan, Cade Stover. Everybody else is hurt. So we're probably going to see more Dalton Schultz than we really want to see. But I
I mean,
could,
they might put in like they might split 50-50 with Brevin Jordan and Dalton Schultz. I mean, you don't want your starting tight end to get 90% of the reps in a preseason game.
well, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think he's going to get the reps like it is a regular season game, but I think he'll probably, like, if they're supposed to play in theory 10 plays, um, and like the starters, I think he'll probably play closer to 20, 25 plays.
Yeah, I could
And
see that.
then Brevin Jordan and Cade Stover split the rest.
Yeah,
Probably
I could see that.
some dynamic of 40-60 Cade Stover,
Yeah.
because you want more out of him. Um, we talked about it earlier, Xavier Hutchinson is in the middle of a phenomenal career, not a resurgence, but literal takeoff. Like,
Yeah.
he is playing his best football. He knows the system. He's comfortable. He's got a good rep with CJ. Would you be mad at the end of the day if Xavier Hutchinson makes the team over John Mechie?
Based off of what I've seen from Mechie so far, no, I
Yeah,
wouldn't be mad.
I wouldn't be either. I mean, Hutch is what, like a fifth? No, what, he's like a seventh round draft pick or something?
I think he was a 6th or 7th. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be amazing. A sixth or seventh round draft pick beating out a
Yeah.
second round draft pick. Obviously the second round draft pick given an unfair circumstance, but um, regardless. So beyond those things, I think this preseason game is kind of a test run for the starters to kind of just turn the engine on, let it run for a couple minutes, and then shut it off just to make
Yep.
sure it still runs. The next game will get it was like a quarter the drive.
It's just a test drive.
Yeah. And then the final game will get a couple drives, and it'll real who's who of the backups and fist fighting and passion. That final preseason game is all across the league. 30 plus men on each team are fighting for 6 or 7 spots on the roster.
Yep.
So unless that team is really bad, then it's probably more than that. But um, I digress. I mean, shit, we have a lot of roster battles going on right now.
Yeah, a lot.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we get into the top 25?
No, sir. We pretty much covered it all.
Okay. I guess one thing I could say would be like, I hope this efficiency out of the quarterback room continues.
Yeah, I agree.
Case Keenum and Davis Mills were slicing and dicing.
Well,
I mean, 10 of 13 for 100 yards and a touchdown, and then led his other drive for a field goal. That's Davis Mills.
yeah,
Case 7 for 9 for like 83 yards. I mean, that's efficient. That is,
Yeah. I mean, I guess in game, like watching the game, it didn't seem that way, but
yeah. Well, Davis had that phenomenal juke out of that one defensive lineman and then threw that dart down the field. I mean,
which was
he's
beautiful.
playing well. Davis Mills needs this as well. I mean, he
Yeah.
needs because it does make sense for the Texans to re-sign him after his contract is up. So he's playing for a potential starting job somewhere, or
Yeah.
playing to be the backup somewhere. Um, and honestly, I wish the Texans would keep him. But let's get into Wade Smith, number 15 on the top 25.
Number
Former
15.
Texans offensive guard, former Kansas City Chief,
Number 15.
Wade Smith.
Wade
Um,
Smith.
Wade Smith. Do you remember Wade Smith?
Vaguely.
Okay.
Vaguely.
He was the left guard for the Texans during the Matt Schaub era. It was like a
Hmm.
3-4 year stint, and he
Yeah.
made like three solid years in a row. It was him and another member on this list that I will not divulge that played beside each other for a very long period of time, and both went to the Pro Bowl and were at one point both considered, top 10 at their position. Um, Wade Smith has been out of the league for a minute now, but um, he was definitely a stalwart on that offensive line for a good 4
Oh
years.
yeah.
His father was very thankful when they spent the money to get that man. Um, Number 14, though he only eclipsed 1,000 yards for us one time, he was very, very close 2 other times. A man by the name of Lamar Miller.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love that guy.
Productive in the very definition of it. You could use him as a primary runner and a receiving threat out of the backfield. Uh,
Hmm.
Fast, very, very fast, shifty. It was a lot of fun to watch when he was playing hot and when the Texans had an offensive line. Um,
Yeah.
he is probably the reason that a lot of teams are worried about, playing starters in the preseason, because I believe that his last, maybe not his last year, but maybe his second to last year, he tore his ACL in the
Yeah.
preseason and was gone for the rest of the year. So,
I remember that. I remember that season. It was a heartbreaker.
like, shit, he's running the ball now.
That was a
uh,
heartbreaker.
I think that was
I th-
like when we
didn't
traded
we?
for Duke Johnson and stuff.
We had Alfred Blue at that point too, right? Or was that just after?
That was after. That was Alfred Blue didn't stick one into Bill O'Brien. That was
Mm,
O'Brien era. That was like one of the first moves that Bill O'Brien was the head coach.
gotcha.
Yeah. Number 13, a number 1 overall draft pick. Somebody, and most, would rightfully say a bust for that pick, but still productive in the NFL. An athlete like no other, hailing from South Carolina, Jadeveon Clowney.
Oh, that man.
Okay, so Clowney, obviously, first round draft pick, did not play a lot the first couple years of his career due to injuries, and I talked about this a little bit on the Titans pod. He belongs in the category of folks who are so quick, so strong that their body just can't keep up with them anymore. It just degrades quick. They're freak athletes. I would put him and I would put Caleb Farley in that same equation.
I could see that.
For Tennessee, because Caleb Farley is a freak athlete. The back injury and several injuries, his house exploding. Um, he's been dealt several setbacks, just in the same way that Clowney did. But he was still able to do some very productive things in this league. He's still playing. I don't know that he's actively signed. He might be back in Baltimore. It's where he
I
was
think
last.
he's still in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that would make sense. I mean, he was pretty productive.
Yeah. Either
And
that or he's a free agent. I'm not entirely sure.
yeah, it's literally one or the other. But this brings us to number 12. And this number 12 is if things trend the same way for CJ Stroud, this person will no longer be the best Texans quarterback, Matt Schaub.
Yeah.
Matt Schaub, statistically, the best Texans quarterback in team history, um, put together a couple of very phenomenal opening seasons in his career with the Texans after being a flashy backup in Atlanta when
Mm-hmm.
Vic was hurt and before the Bulldog fighting allegations. Um, Schaub comes over in a trade with Atlanta, plays pretty well, kept getting hurt early and often. That's when Sage Rosenfels would come in. Sage Rosenfels was a career backup who all of a sudden was playing lights out football
Yeah.
in Gary Kubiak's phenomenal zone scheme that he learned from Papa Shanahan. That Mike or that his boy Kyle Shanahan still runs,
Mm-hmm.
and that we run a version.
Yeah.
Um, it's a phenomenal system built on play action and zone running, and Matt Schaub made it look good, leading the league in
Mm-hmm.
passing, 4,700 yards, making a Pro Bowl, two Pro Bowl appearances, as well as taking the Texans to the playoffs on two separate occasions. It technically could be credited with, but I feel like TJ Yates deserves some credit for that uh,
Yeah.
because in a couple of those, like the first Texans playoff game was because of TJ Yates, because Matt Schaub got hurt early or late in the season, and TJ Yates came in as a rookie and
And took
won
over.
that game in Cincinnati, and then we played them again in the playoffs and beat them. It was sick. I think
I
that
remember watching. I remember watching highlights of that game. I don't like. I obviously I was. I'm only 21, so I
right,
mean, watching that game was just. I wouldn't remember it even if I did watch it,
yeah,
but I've seen highlights of that game and it was just amazing.
oh yeah. TJ Yates didn't necessarily light the world on fire, but he was clean and he was able to move the ball.
Yep.
And it was a low scoring game. And I don't remember if Andre played that game, but I know Kevin Walter caught the game winning touchdown at the game,
Yeah.
and that's why Yates and Kevin Walter are forever Texans elite.
Mm-hmm.
But that secured the playoffs, and then they go on to win the playoffs. A large part in part because of Matt Schaub, but also those two gentlemen. And then the man who protected the blind side of uh, the Texans quarterbacks for roughly, what was it, 11 seasons? Ranging from Matt Schaub, Sage Rosenfels, Brian Hoyer,
Good
Ryan
about
Mallett,
Hoyer.
Tom Savage, Deshaun Watson. Um, I'm missing some people. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was consistent. Drafted in 2006 out of Virginia Tech. He's still not retired at this moment. Um, Last year, he signed with the Jets. Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown.
Yeah.
One of the goats of the left tackle position. Um, I have another one on this list, but we'll get to that one in the next episode. That was number 11 is Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown is a phenomenal left tackle. At this point, he is 38 years old. He's
Old bastard.
coming out and playing solid ball. He's basically in his Jason Peters era because Jason Peters was at one point the pinnacle of left tackle play.
Yeah.
And since then, he is now 40, 41 years old. He has played sparingly at left tackle, right tackle, guard on
One of
probably
those.
about 8 different teams over the last 8 years.
He's a utility. at this point. And
Now, Dwayne has never played anything other than tackle,
yeah,
so that's not happening. But yeah, Dwayne is he's going to come in somewhere and be a serviceable starter the entire season. He was actually getting paid basically half of what Laramie Tunsil was during that Laramie Tunsil trade, and then re-signing back in the day. Um, and they basically had the same stats the first year, which really kind of made me mad because we spent twice as much to get the same production.
yeah,
But Gary Tunsil has consistently improved, and is actually playing better than Dwayne Brown was in his 20s. So,
which is awesome. I mean,
yeah. So, anyway, next episode we will do 10 through 6. Uh, Ron, you got any closing comments, my dude?
um, I do want to apologize about missing half the show. Um, but I mean, other than that, um, I'm excited to see where this team goes. I really am. I talked to a lot of the guys at work. I brag about the Texans. Obviously, I mean, what Texans fan doesn't at this point?
Right?
Um, and I'm saying, we really got a shot at to take it all the way this year. And obviously, you got all those doubters like, oh no, it's just hater talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm excited to see what we do, where we go, and yeah,
Go Texans.
go Texans.
Damn, Skippy. Couldn't have said it better myself, my dude. So the game again, Friday night. That's tomorrow. We're gonna be watching that shit. We'll probably get another episode out. I think we're still gonna stick to one a week. So we'll see you guys next Thursday. Till then, be good people and go Texans.